everybody.
Hey, everyone.
Hi.
You're back.
We're streaming to you, so all right, here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Automotive Podcast. This is episode 12. As the title says there, we're going to be talking a lot of 3D printing with our special guest down in the Hollywood Square bottom corner there, Mr. Bill Geary. We have the full crew here, although Sean, at least on my screen, is frozen. So we'll soldier on. I think we can hear him. Whether we can see him or not, that's another matter altogether. So, guys, it's been a couple of weeks since the last go around here. Mr. Chester, what have we been up to?
I'm still working on the Hoonicorn. I got the clear coat on it, and I'm going to start polishing it out this week. So, try to move on. I want to finish that for the Akron show.
As I told you when I was talking to you the other day, the difference of the decals between when you put them on and what they look like now that thing's been 2K'd is like a metric ton better. I don't know what about those.
Yeah.
What about 2K'ing them made them pop out a little bit, but you can definitely see the camo pattern in it a lot better, and they're more vibrant now that they've been cleared.
I agree. I think they were almost like a brown before I cleared them, and now that it's cleared, it looks a lot better. Almost like a flat black on black, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, great video series, by the way. I really enjoyed watching it this week.
Thank you. Yeah. I was kind of a little concerned about it because there wasn't much substance in the video. I mean, it was carbon fibers and shooting 2K clear, which is a lot of work, but in the video, it doesn't seem like a lot of progress. But that's a week's worth of progress for me. So
yeah, nice. That series has definitely got a lot of views.
Yeah, I think it's doing well for the channel.
Yeah, you're doing a bang up job. That is not my forte, is anything video. I get people that will ask me about doing video. I have my own channel. I have a small channel that doesn't have a lot of stuff on there. But the best I can do is some kind of a mini tutorial on Blender as far as is 3D stuff. But like yourself, that you go into 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, I couldn't do it.
Mr. Duff?
It's been another fun week of shuffling things around and not accomplishing much of anything. My whole bench is set up for like my overhead camera and stuff like that because I wanted to do a review of the Porsche. I was watching back my videos that I had done earlier. It's like, where did I leave off with like here's the crap I bought that you don't have stuff? And like, I realized in a couple of those videos, I was like, oh, I'm going to do a kit review of this. I'm going to do a kit review of that, just in the box, kind of stuff, nothing major. And like, I didn't do any of those. And then of course you bore witness to my complete and total detour down the 68, 69 dart rabbit hole that has been caused by this year's USAC build thing that's going on. So that's been a fun little sojourn of itself. I really wish I could have had on video the instant that I touched the K-frame on that model and it would twink and exploded off. I have a 69 dart kit, right? It came out in 95, so it's an original that I bought in 1995. I think it's probably one of those people who've been around forever on the channel know the shtick of my mom used to buy models for every A I got on my report card, which was a great way to start a hoarding habit when you're a teenager. And so that kit exists from when it was new. And I looked at the K-frame, and it's like the torsion bars, I guess, off the side of it. And they had like a wibble to them. And I'm like, I don't remember these being bent. And so I got the 68 kit out, and I'm like, no, they're straight. And I just grazed it. I didn't even push on it. And that one side of the torsion bar just literally went twink. It literally made that noise. Like it was under so much tension that it just snapped off. It landed in the box. I know where it's at. But like I've never seen a model kit literally disintegrate in front of my eyes like that before. So, I don't know. That was
1995. That's 30 years ago. That's kit.
Yeah, I have Johan kits and stuff. Like those are almost my parents' marriage, and it's or my dad's when my mom passed away. But still, like those kits are in one piece. You touch those and they don't explode. I've never had I have a bunch of kits from that era, and I've never had any of them literally implode like that before. So decals go bad and all that stuff, but never once a part just look at it, king, and off it goes. I feel that I could probably glue it back together again, but then the other side is wavy too, and I might just, since I told you,
Swap it.
somewhere along the lines somebody cut the wiper off the chrome tree, so I only have one windshield wiper as well, and I didn't do that myself, so it must have been something that happened in production somewhere along the line. So if we have to buy wipers or get the one spare off of you, I'll go into the eBay Doom and pay somebody $95 for a K-frame, because everybody's
Just
part-time
use the
kids.
68.
But then I don't have a K-frame for the 68. What am I supposed to do? Sell that?
I got an
front
extra one.
suspension.
I got a spare one.
So yeah,
It's a
that was
Mopar
my
kit.
week.
I got him.
Well, yeah, that's true. I was regaling him with, like, on the way there, I'm like, oh, I don't think I have any wiring looms left and stuff like that. And I know he was sitting there reading those messages going, like, he's not going to fully detail this kit out. I used to do that, like, much like yourself. Like, if you could find, one of them's at my parents' house, but I have one around here somewhere that I don't know where it's at off the top of my head. Like, the last 2 models I built for competition back in my early 20s, before I took the break of getting truck driving career started, like, I plumbed and wired and did all that stuff on those kits. But now it's like, oh yeah, exactly. And now it's like he can't even assemble a model kit in more than once every 4 years. So we'll see.
He's
Mr.
the
Geary,
collector, Bill.
Yeah, that's right. It's a completely different hobby than building. Collecting is a separate hobby. Now, Bill, we'll interview you about all your exploits in 3D printing and all that. But is there anything you are specifically working on right now?
Well, I have it right in front of me if I can get it in the camera real quick. This is a 3D printed, you want to call it 1967. It was a 64 Pontiac Banshee concept car, and I've turned into what would have been a 67 production model, because had it not been for the top brass of GM, Pontiac would have came out with this car. But they did not want anything touching their beloved Corvette. So they pretty much told John DeLorean, absolutely not. So I found this file. The file originally came from a designer on CG Trader. And of course, it had to be converted to print, which I did. And I ended up taking the 68 Revell Firebird and chopped up the chassis and made it to what it would be. As a matter of fact, that was what was supposed to be the actual car setup. It was supposed to use the mechanicals from the Camaro Firebird platform, obviously to save money. I said, you know what, I can do something like that. So I hacked up the chassis you saw and shortened up the floor pan and the exhaust and the drive shaft and moved the engine back a little bit. And really, it's just a matter of taking the time once the weather starts getting a little bit cooler, just paint it, because it's ready to paint. And the thing with 3D printing and 3D tech, it's literally, as James can attest to, Jim can attest, it's literally a hobby within itself. It's literally within a hobby within a hobby.
Absolutely.
Nice. Very nice. The body style of that reminds me of the cars from Disneyland, like the little not self-driving, but the little cars who would drive themselves. What was that part of Disneyland?
I'd never been there.
Or something like that.
I've never been.
Small World? I don't know.
Body from the Banshee.
I think that's Epcot. Isn't that Epcot's World of Tomorrow where you drove the cars?
Well, this would have been the original Disneyland when they opened it, like in Florida, and they had little cars that you drove around. Maybe I'm old enough that I remember this stuff. Probably dating myself, but they had a little car that was a body that was very. It looked like it was probably copied from the Banshee.
Okay. Well, the original car debuted on the show circuit in '64, and everybody, because I got into conversation with people on Facebook about this, immediately say, "Oh, it looks like the Corvette." No, the Corvette looks like it, because this car, the car actually took its lines, its inspiration from the '61, '62 Monza GT show car, which was the Corvair that had the flip-up cabin, it was a mid-engine, and that's where the basis for that came from. So yeah, it was the Corvette stylist that stole from it. Once they got word that, hey, there's no way this car is coming out, So they said, "Oh, we'll just take what we know seen with that one, we'll just new Corvette out of it." So much to
Right.
probably John DeLorean's anger, because he spent quite a bit of time trying to get this car developed, but the GM brass had told him no. And you think about it, the car would have weighed somewhere around 2,500 pounds, and this
Ooh.
particular version had a V8 in it, 326 Pontiac V8. You can bet you that car would have outran the Stingray big time.
Oh yeah.
Even a 420,
Oh, yeah.
I bet you could run wheel to wheel with it, not surpass it. And GM
I
brass,
agree.
absolutely not. No. So that's what I'm working on as far as hopefully in the next few weeks. I'm just go ahead and get it painted. I've got printed wheels and insertable white walls and tires and the whole bit. And just a matter of painting the white walls and insert them in and getting the body painted. And I don't know what's
color?
next. I have a project in mind. I've got one more thing. I almost forgot. This has been collecting dust, and I'm checking. I bought a can of the Revell Chrome Spray, and I've not been brave enough to try it yet. But this is my
Your Shelby.
the Shelby Green Hornet.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
And trying to get it focused in the camera there, but it's just a matter of I have the bumper. I just got to paint the bumper. Well, the front one's already been chromed. That's from another Mustang kit that I was able to get that to fit pretty well. But the car's essentially done. Paint the wheels, paint the bumpers, get stripes and everything on, and she's all done. I started working on this, I think, back in 16, 17. And lost interest in it, put it away for a while. And then when I moved here, I didn't work on anything once I moved here. It might have been a good 6 months to a year because it just the house had many issues that I had to get together before I was able to really do anything. And once I got that solved, and then 3D printing came along, and now I've been pretty much, sucked in by that.
Tumbled down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Mr.
Sean,
Sean,
you're working on that truck, right?
Yeah, I just finished the box art for the 71, the Mobius 71 custom 4x4. In fact, I'll give our audience an exclusive. I will share the box art for that.
Sneak peek, ladies and gentlemen.
So this is, I haven't even shared this
here.
So it's in the, I think one of you guys, there you go.
Oh, wow. Check that out.
So that's the artwork for the box top. It shows off the custom wheel. So it has a high lift suspension, and then it's got steel bumper with a winch, roll bar, has a gun rack with the shotgun and a rifle, hunting rifle, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Very
great artwork.
Thank you.
That is excellent artwork. I mean, that to me, I wish years ago AMT and others would have latched on, because you do some very good work. To me, that is a selling point of the kit, is the box art itself.
Thanks.
Yeah, I agree.
When it's looking plain and kind of blah, and you wonder why stuff doesn't sell. Well, okay, well maybe it's your box art that's substandard, and nobody wants to buy anything they think might be substandard. Because how many kits have you seen that are substandard, but they have perfect example of Palmer. Palmer had some neat box art, but
He did.
Much to be desired.
Yeah, Palmer had some great art. Yeah.
Yeah, but you open it, and the kit left a whole lot to be desired as far as what it actually was supposed to be. A lot of them. There was some neat ones out there, but for the most part, they were something.
Yeah. So I was pretty happy with this. I tried to do something a little bit different. I've been trying to do some more atmospheric looking renderings with, at different points of the day where the light's more dramatic, either at night or in the early morning. And so this is the sunset with,
It's really good. I like that a lot.
Yeah, the lights on. That's really sweet.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
very, very good.
it's very excellent. It's artwork, really, as far as box art goes. And when you're 16 kits into a Ford series, you really need some good box art to sell the product. So,
and
How
I'll
could those
share,
tires be so clean, though? If it's rolling around in the dirt, how could those tires be so clean?
it was just washed. It just came out of the barn.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
And
it's
I'll show you real quick a preview of the decal sheet that I designed for the kit. So
it's like every single race car that's severely weathered with clean tires. That's what that is.
Look at that.
this is the
Wow.
tribute to America.
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 Yeah.
So there you go.
Those are excellent. I can't get over the quality of that. Is they're very clear. They're readable. How many decals have you seen when you can't even, what's that supposed to say? You're squinting, and no, even from
Right.
here, and my eyesight is nowhere near where it used to be. It's a whole other subject, but yeah, that's very good. Very, very nice.
Yeah. And I wanted to do sort of the plaid interior, so I thought that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, since
So
this is
those are door cards, I assume?
yeah, door cards and inserts for the seat. What's funny about this, though, these are actually, because it's a custom, I could do whatever I want. So these are not actually Ford patterns. These are Chevy patterns. I think it's from, I forget, Chevy had a, I forget what it's called. I'm sure somebody probably in the comments or something might know, but during early 70s, they had a blue and a green and an orange plaid interior. And so I ended up using that as the reference because I just liked the way it looked. So there
Very
you
cool. Very cool. So the truck is done then, right?
Yep, the done. the truck is done. The artwork's done. The decals are done. It's all. I just sent it off a couple of days ago. So I don't know what the production date and when that'll be in stores. And I'm sure people are going to start. When's it going to be in the store? I have no idea. Whenever they decide, that's when it'll be there.
I'll say a little birdie has told me that the tow trucks are on the water, so that would be your next F series of choice.
Maybe. I don't know. And I actually bought kits this week, which I never do. I broke down and I bought a Demon because I really wanted one. And I finally got one of the 60 Fords. So this one, I think it's going to get built. Maybe the next one on my, because I really wanted to build, because the bed is separate. I've always wanted to do a step side bed and take the bed out of the AMT 53 step side pickup and make the step side conversion. So
I have to tell you, Sean, look into Few Loose Sprues. They make a resin, a printed resin grill for that Demon. It's superb. I have one. He sent it to me for a review that I never did yet, but I'll do it soon. But you'll need one, and they're cheap too. They're like less than $10.
And who's the company again? Few Loose Sprues.
Few Loose Sprues, like screws loose in your head.
I like it. I like it.
Is he also? Because I saw somebody post online. Is he selling a 72 grill as well?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's them guy.
Yeah, but it's nice because the grill's all opened, which is super nice.
Wow, that's hard to do in 3D printing sometimes to get them. I cringe at having to do that. I did that recently with a Mustang convertible file I designed, and I was a little pleasantly surprised when the grill printed that I made it so that it would be open. I was like, wow, it came out. Wow, it's that's rare. Wall or some kind of plane behind it, so the pattern is there, but it's not necessarily see through. But yeah, that's not an easy task, especially thin bar grills. Yeah.
Well, since we're doing new wares,
What is that?
That's the oh wow, man! All the reflection in the world. There we go. So the new boxy Nissan, the street version of the rally car. I know how much.
with those
I
wide bodies.
yeah, the big square flares that Mr. Tester likes there, and I know he's such a huge fan of this generation of Sylvia. He wants all the kits that came out of this. He hates them, and so yeah. So that one, and
Japanese
then
Buick Regal.
let's say, and then let me pile on with everybody else who picked up.
I want that one.
The street custom 240Z Tamiya. Always a reminder that I hate the JDM crowd that you can build this as a Datsun. It has left-hand drive in it, so you can build it like you would have bought it here. And then the thing that I think that we've all us 80s kids always wanted but never could have, and now we finally get is look, it's a factory stock DeLorean.
Oh,
Speaking of John DeLorean,
that I would take that over a file any day.
say,
oh yeah,
John's sort of downfall in life, so to speak, would be this car.
I do follow that actually, but no, I'll take the kit because just from here, that looks really good. I like that a lot.
Wow.
So this is based on the new tool DeLorean that they made up for Back to the Future.
Mm-hmm.
That kit sort of, you could tell this was coming out of it because all of the Back to the Future crap is separate. All the wiring and all the cabling and all that was separate off the body. You're like, hey, I wonder if they're going to do a factory stock version of that. And there was box art floated as a teaser. There wasn't real box art that really isn't too far off of what the box art ended up being. This is very boring. Sean needs to be involved, and it could have made something better out of that. But yeah, I've long thought, man, if you wouldn't have to sand all that stuff off of the old Aoshima, and it was released as an AMT kit, if you wouldn't have to sand all that stuff off, I'd really have to make a DeLorean out of it. It took 25 years, but hey, finally got a DeLorean. So.
No, that is nice because that's one of the things that turned me off about the DeLorean. I mean, Back to the Future movies were good. I just never liked what they did to that car. It's just too much. It's some will cringe or hate when I say this, but it's like that Corvette Summer car.
Right.
I never could quite latch onto that. I mean, you've got folks that go crazy over that. Just no.
It was too much. I agree.
Yeah, it's just overdone. I mean, it's just too much.
A couple other things before we turn things over to Mr. Tester here. Speaking of that Back to the Future kit, they've announced, and this was obviously coming because they're going to do all three movie cars, but they've announced the second one with the fold-up wheels on it. You get a little a stand, so you can do the airplane modeler gag of having it in flight. So again, not a big shock that they're going to do the second car. The question will be, are they going to put a railroad base in the third one like the old kit had? Because like the old, remember, they had wide white walls, easy to say fast, or railroad track wheels, and then it came with a little diorama display. So yeah, that's there. And then the other thing, and to me, it did us dirty.
You forgot to mention that one has a hoverboard in it.
Oh yes, that's right. It's true. It does have a scale hoverboard. I forgot about that.
Oh wow!
And then to me, it totally did us dirty last time because like literally about 8 hours after we went off the air, after talking about it, they dropped the box art for the new Porsche kit. So
right,
we discussed this last episode, the new GT3 RS, and while they were there, they went ahead and gave us sort of, if I can get them, there we go, give us the built production model as well. It looks like the stripes are going to come in 4 different colors, not the color that Mr. Tester wanted. So unfortunately, he'll have to, I don't know, rob one of his resin kits or something like that. But it looks like a GT3 RS in the way you'd expect it to. I am not a... What's that?
What color are you wanting to do, Mr. Tester?
Green. The neon green.
Nice.
I say there's no engine in here. I didn't expect there to be one. There hasn't been an engine in any 911 that to me has ever made going back into the 80s. So there's, the exhaust pipes down here. Basically, everything's covered up by an aero tray. So the point of putting an engine in here, slim to none. The interiors here. The only thing I will say about this, and I agree with a couple other people, is this carbon fiber pattern that decals have is just awful. I don't understand why. To me, it makes carbon fiber decal sheets, just A5 decal sheets of carbon fiber, and yet they've pick some really crazy crosshatch out of scale thing going on there for the decal sheet. I don't understand that, but again, they make their own sheets, get the decals, you know, literally run them through a copy machine and use them as templates, because I'm not putting those on my car.
James, do you have a picture of the other new kit that they're going to come out with that only I'm interested in?
Oh, that reissue. No, I don't. I mean, let me pull it up here real quick. It's like actually, the humor in this is the fact that I saw it in passing and I didn't mention it to him because, like, whatever, you know, it's a goofy reissue of a very JDM specific subject matter, something that I wouldn't have struck me as being in his wheelhouse necessarily. If I could, I'm trying to go on like that.
It's very much.
I guess that's just a straight reissue then, right?
Yeah, it is. It is.
Here, I'm gonna try to look it up on the Japanese language version here.
Okay.
Anyway, I'll dig for it in the background here, but they're reissuing the Honda City with the Moto Compo
scooter in the back, yeah.
And he's all like, "Oh yeah, I want one of those." And I was like, "What in the world are you talking about?" Oh, yeah.
That's a little boxy car, right?
Yeah. And Madness, you know, Our House fame did a commercial where they were, you know, like marching down the street, you know, singing this song about it in Japan.
Now this is the old box art of the original kit. The new one is a black one. It's tipped the other direction, but it's a kit this has all existed as one piece since it came out. But yeah, you get this little Moto Compo scooter with this. I guess City's a K car, isn't it? It would qualify. It's small enough.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm all over that.
I love these wheels. I don't know what's going on here. It looks like it's a Japanese wall outlet.
I'm not sure he can get in. Real thing is so tiny.
I don't know that I could get in this thing.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that. I don't think James Tester could get into this thing. He's a pretty tall dude. So
Tim Custom.
Yeah,
Tim's make a time machine out of it.
Make a time machine out of that.
Didn't they make like a wide body racing version of that? With like flared
I believe
fenders?
they did. I think Oshima did one. It's called Bulldog or something.
Yeah. There was a single make racing series in Japan of just those things. It was a support series to.
Could you imagine how
3000? Could
you imagine how slow that race would be? Because those are only 600cc engines.
Oh.
Go-kart racing is basically what it is. The enclosed go-kart. Yeah.
It'd be painful to watch a race series.
Aoshima just put that back out not that long ago. Let's see.
The Bulldog.
Yeah. Aoshima kicked out that kit, but there's a racing version of it. I wonder what they consider that to be. Is that a City 2? Yeah, that's what it is. Aoshima City 2. Yeah, they did that, but I don't. Let's see. It's in this. Always great part of like screen sharing an actual website is you got to like try to blow my own personal text window up, and then when I do go into like just do my email tomorrow, all of my email is going to be huge, like I'm blind. But they did this version.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is technically a K car. If do these fender flares put it over with at that point?
Oh, it might.
Because for people who don't know, K car not only based on engine CC but also a width, and sometimes you put the flares on these things, it kicks it out of K car. These wheels also great as being like half of a rotary dial, like it's three holes. Calling horsepower.
Right.
Yeah. But there is a racing version of that. I know there is.
Huh.
Yeah, that
are 2 more kits I have to get.
We're back to them. Okay. So yeah. That's your upcoming, because we covered all of the other announcements pretty much last week out of All Japan. But I don't know if it's next time. No, it'll be the last episode of October. We'll have the show coverage from that. But Yeah, that wraps me up, Mr. Tester. If you want to go ahead and get your interview underway, and we'll be.
Bill,
I'll sit here and rapt attention as we learn more about 3D printing. I don't have a 3D printer. I'm on that precipice edge, so I'm interested, but I know nothing. So I'll just be quiet.
let's step back in time, Bill. Before even Mr. Obsessive came about, when did you start modeling? What got you started in the hobby?
Well, let's go all the way back to 1968, Christmas of 68. And that sticks in my mind because Hot Wheels had came out that year. And that Christmas, I got probably every Hot Wheel that Mattel introduced for 68, along with a set. And remember, there were two model kits that I got. One of them, I think, was a 40 Ford, which might have been a reissue at that point. And the other one was an annual, if I can remember right, an annual 68 Chevelle. As soon as I opened the box up, I would just put them away because it reminded me of a puzzle, and I hated puzzles. I couldn't stand it. I remember the teacher getting upset with me because, okay, what am I doing? Am I putting the picture together? What is this? I don't understand. It was instant turn off, and I don't even remember what happened to the kids. My mom probably, I don't hope she didn't toss them out. She probably gave them away because, and now they're worth big bucks.
Oh yeah,
60s annual kits from that time, they're worth a pretty penny. Fast forward about 10 years, I'm now a senior in school, and one of my first early jobs I had was working at a McDonald's, and I could never get a Saturday off. And my dad even said, "Bill, somebody's getting Saturdays off in there." Well, finally I got a Saturday off, and wouldn't you know it, it rains. So I said, you know what? I can't do that. I don't want to sit in the house here all day. It's boring. So I got in the car and I went to our local mall, which was called the Colonial Park Mall. And in the Colonial Park Mall was a hobby shop called Allied Hobbies. I don't know if you ever heard of them. Hobbies was a pretty big chain once upon a time. So I go in, let me go in and just check out, just look around. And I see a model kit of a 57 Corvette, which I think was new that year or about the year before. It was the red car and the red box art monogram kit. So, oh, look at this. Let me check it out. I says, you know what? This looks interesting. So I got that. I got a tube of glue, and I came home and I put it together that afternoon. Spots everywhere. It was a mess, but I was tickled by it because that's the first model I ever attempted to sit down and try to build after just not liking them, because I got them. I remember getting them as gifts for Christmases after that, and I just would not touch them. And I decided this time, you know what? Let me just tackle it and see what's up. Try to follow the instructions as best I could. And I got everything together. But I remember gluing the hard top in place, which, I didn't know you shouldn't really do that. And later on, I tried to pull and part of the top stayed on the car.
You must have used a lot of glue.
Yeah, I used the old Tester's orange tube glue. If you remember that stuff, which was pretty much in 1978. So it would be a few more tries of that kit, and I noticed each time the next one would get a little better, a little better, a little better. And pretty much since then, I've been building them. I didn't really get into a lot of super detailing until sometime in the early 90s. And who got me inspired, what started the fire for that was the first contest I ever went to was in 1987. I had just joined our local club here, CPMCC, the Central Pennsylvania Model Car Club. And they had a contest at our local fairgrounds. And I remember entering it, and I met Ken Hamilton for the first time. And Ken Hamilton had his just recently built 49 Mercury that I swear did everything but start up and run. You open the doors up, the lights came on. He opened up the little glove box, the light came on. The windows rolled up and down. I was blown. I said, roll up windows. Wow, I couldn't believe it. I mean, the doors open, the suspension, where everything this car, like I said, literally just didn't take off. It's running, just running on its own. And that's what got me started, got me interested in doing more building. And Larry Booth was a great inspiration to really get into super detailing. His 57 not Corvette, it's a T-Bird he did. That set me over. That was one of the nicest models I'd ever seen before or since. Well, since then I've seen some real nice ones, but I'd never seen that much detail of what he did as far as scratch built items go into a car as that one. And that's what got me started to trying, doing opening doors, hinging them, make my own hinges, working suspensions, the whole bit.
Well, you were in quite the club, the CPMCC.
Yeah.
That's quite the club.
And
lots of names in there.
the Mama's boys in Maryland, which I don't remember meeting up with those guys until maybe about 93, 94. That I first started. I think it was 94 because I remember the car I had then. That's one of the first meetings I went to. And at that point, I was really getting into starting to get into my own scratch build thing. And I met Larry Booth finally there. This before I think he's in Texas now. Yeah. But yeah, I don't do the super detailing near as much as I used to because the eyesight just won't let me dictate. It's not quite the case now when you get past the 60 mark, when things just change and sometimes drastically. It's much easier for me to design because I can see the laptop. The laptop is big as day, but there's a lot of parallels between 3D design printing and model building because just like I like to get detailed with the builds I do, you have the same thing with 3D design and printing. More design end of it because
I can see that in the detail that you put into those.
Yeah, it can be just as trying because it's same frustration. Something's not drawing correctly, or I can't get a particular curve correct, or I can't get a particular function in 3D program to cooperate the way I'd like to. There's a number of a lot of parallels with that and the physical models that are sitting on my table here.
I can only imagine how much storage space you have in terabytes of files.
The laptop I have, which is unfortunately on its way out, I had an incident. I'd never seen this happen before with a laptop. I literally cannot close it. For some reason, somehow the hinge on the right-hand side or left-hand side, if it's facing me, will not. It broke away from the screen.
Okay.
And I remember trying to close, and I heard a slight snap, and I looked at the screen in the corner; it's slightly shattered. So I literally cannot close it. But the laptop came with originally 0.5 terabyte, and I'm down to only like 25 gigs now. Lots and lots and lots of files, and I can get into a little bit of how I first got into 3D printing. Back about 7-8 years ago, a fellow by the name of Doug. What's Doug's last name? Well, Doug wrote me a message on Model Cars magazine asking me would I mind building for the forum and like a little mini article, a 3D printed engine. I said, sure, I'll check it out. I'd heard of 3D printing, but never got anything or seen anything that I just heard about it, but not got anything physically in hand. And Doug sent me a 3D print of a 1958 Plymouth 318 Polyhead V8, which has never been kitted correctly at all. And even the one in the don't get me started about this kit, but the one in the 58 Plymouth, I'm not that's supposed to be. It's like it's a combination of several things and nothing at all. The way I can describe to be polite. I know some give that's not a bad. Well, okay, well, I can go on and on about that car. Anyway, I built this, and the thought occurred to me was, no, wait a second. If this was printed from a file, that means that if a file exists of a particular said car, you can create anything. And I even said at the time, I think I mentioned in the online in the article or the thread I was creating, different posts I put up, this will be the next big wave of the hobby. And I said this back in like 16, 17. Some poo-poo that, oh no, it's just a fail. I said, no, I'm telling you, this is before, by the way, that Don and Carol Holthouse announced they were retiring. I think they announced sometime in 17, maybe 18, they were retiring. And I'd said before that, it will make certain things obsolete in a hobby as far as what the kit manufacturer is going to come up with, because if a file exists of that car, it can be done. Not to mention what people can create on their own,
Right.
with no file existing. So fast forward now, I decided to buy a 3D printer. The first one, a small frozen Mini 4K. I think I got at the very end of 21, early 22. I know it's before I had stopped working. So it must have been, just say, January 22. And I was just blown away by the things that I just was running into that I could print. I signed up for a time with Scale Speed Garage and Chris Bell. And yeah, I was just fascinated by the stuff he was putting. And he puts out some really good files. I recommend people that are new to printing to visit his site, because he does a very good comprehensive overview of the ups and downs, the ins and outs of 3D printing. It's a sub site, and he has real good deals for those that they can't afford to pay the $20 or whatever it is he charges per month.
Right.
Different,
He
different.
Doesn't he also do he'll give you a printer if you sign up for a monthly subscription fee or something?
Something like that, yeah. I never looked into that because I do it my own. I have one dial. I had a frozen Mighty 4K that for some reason bit the dust around the middle of last year. I still have it sitting over here in the hallway here. I don't know what happened. All I know is everything works except it will not calibrate.
Oh.
Well, I think my best guess is I suspect the Z-axis motor is bad, and I could probably take it apart and replace the motor, but I've since got the new one since then, and I just haven't full with it sitting here collecting dust. Someday I'll get it going, but now I have 3 printers to clean up after.
I gave away my 4K when the screen went bad. A friend of mine said, "Hey, I want it." I'm like, "All right, yeah, here, take it, please." So he was willing to put the $80 into a new screen. The printer was worth like $110 or something new. Okay. So I said, "But yeah, just have it, take it."
It's still working for him?
I don't think he's put the screen in it yet, but I think he will. He will.
They're not hard. They're not impossible to work on to fix. It's just the time to do it, because you literally have to take the thing apart just to get the thing. I know when I first I thought the motherboard was bad, so I took the whole thing apart, took the motherboard out, got a new motherboard directly from Frozen, and that still didn't fix it. Everything else worked, but it would not. I said, okay, that tells me the Z-axis motor itself is faulty, mechanically faulty. You can have a starter go bad in your car, and it's not the BCM or the ECM that's bad. It's physically the starter that's bad. You replace the starter and the car is fine. It starts right up. So that tells either the wiring inside is bad, because I just find it odd that everything else works, but that it will not calibrate. Because what it's supposed to do when you start a file, you know, Jim, it's supposed to come down at home, or you load the file and the plate comes down and start. It won't do that. I keep getting error messages and it won't. It like backs up or something. It's real weird what it does. So I can't get it to calibrate to do that function.
It's a 4K machine anyways, which is a dinosaur already.
Absolutely. I have my Mighty 8K and I'm real happy with that. And I guess eventually give it a few years, because the hobbies, this is constantly evolving. There's new stuff coming out all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And on the design end of it, I didn't really decide to design my own cars until maybe 6 months. Maybe 6 months after I got the first Mini 4K. and I did not design it per se. I was able to learn how to take a file and make it printable.
Okay.
You know, different cars out there I come across, and I figured out how to do wall thickness, how to make parts manifold, like trim, so that it does print. I wasn't getting failures. I see models that someone will come up with, and I had someone the other day show me something. I said that the file itself is bad. There's something wrong with the file, because his trim kept coming. I could look at it. I can probably tell you the trim is not properly embedded in the surface of the file where it should be. And every time you print it, it's not going to print because it's not fully meshed into the body itself.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
Bill,
I've had few people send me. I'm sorry, Sean. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask you what software that you use to design your own.
Blender. I use strictly Blender. Blender is one of those programs that is not for the faint of heart. It's not impossible to learn, but it's a very steep learning curve. There's things I'm still finding out heading on 3 years later that I've not come across before that I'm learning about Blender. And Blender has its quirks too. I've run into issues with Blender that all I can do is just scratch, but like, well, how'd that happen? But yeah, that's all I use. That's for design. Blender, I found out, is best for more organic things like wheels and tires and car bodies and things like that. Some like Fusion 360, and I found Fusion 360 to be more geared for the more mechanical end of things. Like if you're doing engines, transmissions, tooling, that sort of thing. Whereas Blender I found to be best for more organic stuff like car bodies. Because I've had people tell me, well, I tried to do this in Fusion. I said, no, Fusion definitely has its place, but it doesn't do what I do very well as far as, I mean, it can, but I just think it's not as user-friendly as Blender.
Yeah, in my where I used to work, I started learning SolidWorks for a little while, and
Yeah.
was doing well until I got to compound curved surfaces, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is like so difficult. Squares, cylinders, no problem, right? But yeah, it was a whole new ball game when you had to get something compound surfaces.
Well, I get questions all the time about, okay, where do you learn to design? I tell them right away, YouTube is your best friend. I didn't go to any classes. I didn't go to any seminars. I am pretty much self-taught. There's YouTube itself has, I can't begin to tell you, endless videos on Blender from everything from just, I tell folks, please learn the basics first. Any program for that matter, learn the basics, because without the basics, you're just going to end up frustrated. Someone will get that program and download it, or they'll get a printer and think they're just going to start printing off cars. No. It's a lot more involved than that. I'm not so sure that 3D printing will ever get to a point where it's just plug and play, because there's just too many variables that can affect how your final print's going to come out, for everything from the itself to the supports to the machine, orientation, wall thickness, a whole lot of variables that are going to come into play. And I've also kind of encouraged folks that even though you have a 3D printer, it doesn't hurt to at least get familiar with the basics of a 3D program, because you will get files that are going to have some issues, and it'd be good to know some kind of background of zeroing in exactly where the issue is. And some
I'm not quite there yet. I'm still buying files and, and printing them.
It's not for everybody, I'll admit. I've had people complain about supports. The supports are a necessary evil. Without good supports, you will have failures. I saw a model that somebody put up, and I could tell right away, you don't have enough real estate underneath the model to support it for it to print. It was the issue where, well, the thing just, it was separated. I said, first of all, I think your bottom exposure time is too low. Up that a little bit. And also, when I'm printing something like the Banshee I showed, I remember the support density was somewhere around 70%. And I very seldom have an issue. I can't remember the last time I had a bad body print, to be honest. If I've had a bad body print, it was because the power went out, and now I have a battery backup, so I'm not worried about that. But the power went out, and I had to chuck everything because I got my cat calling me here. Kitty cat, you're gonna have to wait. You probably hear him. He'll start being noisy in a second because I'm ignoring him. But yeah, power goes out. Of course, the machine can't pick up where it left off, and you gotta chuck everything and start over. That's one dread. I've tried to tell folks also, it wouldn't hurt to spend the extra money to please get a battery backup for your printer, because nothing more frustrating. You got a 10-hour print, and hour 9 the power fails, and you just lost everything. that has happened. That has happened.
But you know, when like I've had problems with a Z shift where, for those who don't know, as it's coming down, the print head shifts just a little bit on the supports, and you'll get a step right in like in the middle of the door or something, and you can't fix that. You could sand, you know, one edge or, you know, put putty, but you would still have a lump right where that line was. So you just pitch it and do it again. You know, it takes less time to print it than it does to fix it.
Yeah, that's what they call Z-axis print shift. What I find helps a lot, because I was putting supports on the side of the body, and that helped a lot too. But then you got to go back and fill in the little divot marks that the supports leave. When I'll show you right here. I think I did it for this one. When I recently printed my 58 Packard Hawk, what I did is I put heavy supports. Trying to get this to where it's. I'm looking in one direction. The camera wants to go somewhere else. On all 4 corners of the body, I had it to where I put heavy supports in place of the light ones. What I found out that anchors it a lot better if the model is supported by heavy supports on the corners. And of course, tilting the body, it might be tilted at a 17 degree, 15, 16, 17 degree angle on the y-axis, for instance. And on the x, it might be another 3-4 degrees. Because I found that you talked about this a lot, Jim, which I'm glad you did. You covered this. Some try to print their bodies flat. That may be okay as far as it goes. However, the problem you're going to run into is that by printing it flat, you run the risk of you have a lot of real estate pulling up from the vat as the plate is lifting up off the vat after the UV light cycle. Well, now you can end up with warped rockers or a warped roof, because you have all that real estate being pulled up.
Oh, right. Just sucking straight, flat to flat. Right.
Exactly. So I'm a big believer in tilting it a bit. Sometimes that's a necessity, because some of these models, I don't know if you saw my 59 Cadillac limo, which was actually a print for someone. Someone had asked me months ago about doing this car. And I had said at first, I told him no, because I wasn't sure that it was going to fit in it was going to be literally
right
down. Yeah. I mean, that's the real car. It's a big car. So finally, I won't mention names. He sent it to an individual that tried to print it, and he sent me pictures. And all I could do was shake my head. I says, no. That is really bad. And it looked like, as I could see, he tried to print it flat. I said, I'll tell you what, send me the file and I'll see what I can do with it. And I had a battery backup at that point. I said, I'm going to go ahead and print this thing. And it came out excellent. I had it tilted like 33 degrees, 32. I mean, it was vertical, it seemed. And
how many hours?
It was 29 hours.
That's crazy.
It was 29.
One day later.
Literally, it was. Oh. And get this, I printed a second because he wanted the second one. The second one, the power did go out. The power went out. I was able to lower it a little bit, so I cut it down to like 26 hours. Hour 22, the power went out. We had a nasty storm come through here. It was real windy. One of the trees fell down on a transformer up the street here. Power was out, and of course the battery backup kicked on like immediately. Didn't miss a beat. But by the time the power came on, I was down to the last bar on the backup. Like, oh no, I said, please, I don't feel like bringing this over. It takes too long. And finally, it came on within like it had like an hour to go when the power came back on. I said, thank goodness. Breathe the sigh, but imagine not having the backup. You got 22 hours in, the power goes out, you've lost the entire print. You got to throw it out. That is the downside of it.
But you know, when say you got something at 30 something degrees, right? Mm-hmm. The support for the top has to grow all the way up here and stay straight and true before it even meets the body, before it gets to this point. Right. You know what I mean? So you really need like heavies. Because if you had lights there, they would just kind of float in the wind.
Very good idea, especially for cases like that where you have to have a model tilted at a high angle like that. Very good idea to put heavy supports on those corners. I'm talking the heaviest supports that you can, because that's that much more real estate growing with the model as each layer is rising. To someone's asked me, what layer thickness do you use? I use 30 thousandths millimeters a layer. The machine is default at 50 thousandths. I found that in some instances to be just a wee bit too rough, so I cut it down to 30. 30, it takes longer. My exposure setting, I'd say about 2.1. My bottom exposure is maybe like 30 seconds. I tried 20 one time. Somebody said 30 was too much. I said, no, I tried 20, and I had it separating from the plate before the model was done, which tells me it wasn't quite enough bottom exposure to get it going. So I bumped it up to 30. Never had an issue. A little bit tougher to get off, but no issues with separation. And the layer height, at least 30 thousandths. Now clear parts, I'll cut it down to raise the resolution down like 20 thousandths, because the less layer height you have on clear parts, the much clearer they'll stay once you clear coat them, whatever you're going to do with them. They'll come out that much better. Takes longer, but it'll come out better.
Yeah. One of the things about exposure time is you really can't share exposure, because without running a calibration test, which the video that I'm going to put out this coming weekend will talk about that each and every one of us have to run our own exposure tests because of humidity, because of temperature, because of the resin you're using, because of the machine you're using. It's all just different. So you may be able to run 2.1, but I have to run 2.4, which somebody else may have to run 2.6.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Barcodes, it's all Chinese to me too.
So the exposure time is the amount, the length of time that the UV light exposes the resin to cure it for just that one level. Yep. And so Bill's machine runs for 2.1 seconds. Mine runs at 2.4 seconds. And it's if Bill ran at 2.4, then his prints would considered overexposed, and his prints would look bloated. If I stepped up to a 2.6 or a 2.7, then my prints would look kind of bloated. So you really have to run a calibrating program every time you change the resin.
I have had one of those printed little calibration thing that I ran. And there's little things you check on the calibration to see, okay, all the letters showing up, all the lines showing up. Is it, can you read it to where it's legible? Things like that. And even between, like you mentioned about different resins, clear resin has a completely different exposure profile than your regular gray resin. Your clear resins need at least, I think I'm running mine at say like 10 seconds exposure. Because
really?
Yeah, because I tried it at the 2.1, 2, and 3, and nothing showed up on the plate.
That's interesting because like the light is shining through the resin. So if you're shining the light through the resin for 10 seconds, you'd think that it would cure more than just one layer.
No, but you don't have the body properties in the resin itself for it to solidify from the UV light like you do gray.
Okay.
That's the only reason I think of why you need a longer exposure time for that for that layer to show up than the standard 8K or 4K resin.
Okay. Okay.
Liken it to well, you got a window shade that can block out a lot of light, but it all depends on how dense the material is. You have your gray resin, your regular standard resin is a lot denser than your clear, obviously. I find the clear cleans up like instantly. I don't have to even use you're done with when you're cleaning your vat, you have that little self-cleaning thing. I don't like to use that because that stuff is so thin, it tends to pull up, and I got little dots I got to try to scrape up off the vat, which I don't like doing that. I sooner just pour the resin out, wash the vat out as is with 91 IPA, and let it dry out. I don't use that cleaning thing on the resin on the clear. The regular resin, yes, because I can pull that up because it's a lot denser. Once it's cured, I can pull it up like a sheet off the vat.
Did you print those little tools that you stick into the resin for the cleaning, or do you chip it from the corner?
I'm a big believer in a no-touch approach to the FEP. I just once the blank has been cured on the FEP, I just pour some alcohol and let it soak for about 15-20 minutes, and it kind of curls right. I just pull it right up. That's all I do.
Okay.
Left over, wash out the FEP, because I don't. Somebody suggested in a video I watched about using a rag. I said, no, don't use a rag to clean the FEP. My God, please, because that just scratches, and of course, the scratchier it gets, the cloudier it can get, and the worse your prints are going to become because the UV light is not able to shine through all those scratches. You're going to have problems. So
that was one of the first things you taught me when I got my printer was don't touch the FEP. Don't ever touch it. Don't scratch it.
Nope. It'll last much longer, and you'll have much happier prints if you don't do that.
Yeah, Frank. Yes, nobody prints windows, or somebody might do it, but I don't do it. Bill doesn't do it.
No,
you can't get them smooth enough.
No, you'll never get the support marks off the clear resin at all very well. You can get it smooth, but you're not going to have the optical clarity like you would is if you were print the buck and then vacuum form it. And that's a whole nother issue. That's a whole other subject. But the models I do, I have one right here for my Banshee. I printed this buck for the windshield. And I make when I format this to print, I usually make the file a bit thicker than the bodies. The bodies I run anywhere from 1.5 to 1.8 millimeters wall thickness, but the windshield bug might be 2.5 millimeters because it needs to be thick enough to withstand the force of the vacuum coming down on it.
I found that out the hard way. It sucked it right down, and then I ended up breaking it because I was trying to take it out. Yeah,
you want it thick enough so that it doesn't break. First of all, because if it breaks, well, you can try piecing it back together, but chances are it's going to break again where you try to fix it because it's been broken. It's cracked. It's no good. So I make them a little thicker. Sometimes 2.5 to 3 millimeters thick. Of course, sucks up a little more resin. But I'd rather do that than have a failed part or failed buck because the vacuum thing came down on it, too much pressure, and it cracked or it broke.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Headlights, you can get away with that because headlights themselves are not actually very clear. They're not transparent like window glass. You can print those and they'll still look realistic because they're translucent clear. Same thing with taillights. You can print those, no problem. But windshields and rear backlights, no, I'm not a fan of that at all.
For the Hoonicorn that I'm building now, I'm gonna dip the tail lights in clear red.
Yep.
And then just let them drip dry, and they'll look really good, I think. And the headlights I'll just do in regular clear.
The clear resin, does it stay clear or does it yellow over time?
It's interesting. I was using Frozen's brand for my printer, and I found out that after a period of time, yes, it did yellow. But someone introduced me to Anycubics brand. You know what? I got the bottle like right here. Anycubics high clear resin. Really, really good stuff. I printed some taillights and some other items with it. No yellowing whatsoever. It's still frosted a bit, but I found out that if you, after it prints and it fully cures, if you've got some Tamiya Clear X22 or any of the old Future floor wax, brush it over that, it'll shine like it'll be literally crystal clear. Because what you're doing is you're covering up over the print lines, number one, with something a harder surface, and with, of course, like Future, that stuff's hard, as tough as nails. Yeah, I found that to be good stuff, but I've had no issue with yellowing today, and I did that a month or two ago. Yeah,
right.
But for some reason, it's funny because not long ago I got an email from Frozen. We have a new, improved clear resin. Well, what about your original stuff? Wasn't that supposed to be so hot? You were touting that. Now you got a new and improved. I said, I'm not buying any more resin for a while. I mean, I got this bottle to last forever because not like I'm printing stuff every day, really.
Right. Yeah, nobody wants to drain the vat and clean it to change colors.
No. I'm somebody asked me about it. I says, no, clear is fine. I don't want to do separate things for clear and amber and red. No. If I can't paint it, it doesn't happen.
So speaking of X22, you're a fan of clear coating your cars with that, aren't you?
Yep.
Which I'm on the 2K thing. Sean, you're on the Tamiya rattle can clear, right?
No, I use 2K.
Okay. All right. Never mind.
I haven't tried the 2K. Hear a lot of good stuff about that. Got to give that a try sometime. The Banshee is going to be painted eventually in 1967 Pontiac. I look at the color. It's called Iris Mist, plum Iris Mist. But I got this that they sent from. Wait a minute. No, that's not it. No. Wait. I'm losing my mind here. Here it is. Paint Scratch has their own automotive clear coat for recommended for use over that.
Okay.
The Spastics, that's someone recommended that to use over the Revell Chrome.
Oh, okay. All right.
Tried it. Yeah, I'm going to try it as is out of the can, not putting anything on it. Just try not to touch it for like a month or so. But
you have a can of that, don't you? The new spray. James, you have a can of that Revell spray, don't you?
No,
I don't have it either.
Not.
Sean?
I'm not paying $40 for a can of paint.
Because getting things chrome nowadays is tough. I hear that Chrome Tech is still doing business, but he only prints at a certain time of year. I think right about now, maybe like once a year. That's what I heard. I know someone correct me out there if I'm wrong about that, but he's still out there plating. But it's literally a set time that he does, and that's it. He's not taking constant orders for plating. I know that if you're familiar with the very good builder Paul Heddick, who's on eBay that sells these really fantastic models he built, he gets a pretty good chunk of change for a lot of them. He mentioned where well, you know what? Let me take that back. He says he gets his things plated but he does not mention the name of exactly who it is. It's an outside player, I think, is so. And I think the reason for that is he doesn't want them to get overwhelmed. Just like I don't people send things to me and I don't mention where they come from because I don't want them getting worried to death about, oh, you got that file? Can I get? I said, no, you cannot, because this was a gift.
I forget what I was going to say. Oh, Little Model Car Company just went out of business. They were doing plating.
Yeah, that was Dale Horner. Dale lives not that far from me, actually. He's in Reading, Pottsville area, if I'm not mistaken. Or yeah, I'm sure he's still there. But Dale's pretty up in age. Dale's well into his 80s. And you know, you get to a point in life where you no longer want to do it. And this is one of the things I was trying to tell folks years ago when it came to 3D printing. Let's face it, none of us are getting any younger. And you're going to have people start leaving the business, the resin casting end of it. And even the 3D printer, we don't do this forever. And I figure it's not going to make resin casting or plastic kits obsolete. But there's just one more tool that you can use at your disposal to get parts that you're just not going to get the kit makers to do, especially cars. There's stuff out there that they'll never make in a million years. You're not going to see any of them ever do a 58 Packard Hawk. Guarantee it.
No. Right.
Or this Banshee.
There's a discussion going on in the comments about primers on printed stuff. What are you using?
Any automotive paint, I would think. I've not had any issues. Anything, as long as it's just the key is the surface of the surface itself. With 3D prints, it's a little more touchy because you've got the print resolution lines to get rid of. This is why I'm also a big believer in going to a higher resolution, like 30,000 as opposed to 50, because it's that much less sanding I have to do to get the body halfway reasonably smooth. And of course, you got the primer, but any automotive primer should work over it. I can tell you though, when it comes to stripping UV activated resin, please do not use oven cleaner.
Oh,
there's something about oven cleaner, and I know this because I printed a headliner for my Green Hornet Shelby. The paint did not come out as well as I'd like, so I thought I'm gonna go ahead and strip it. I put it in. I sprayed it some Easy Off on it. And I said I'll let it sit overnight because it was acrylic paint, and for some reason ammonia wasn't quite taken off. And I came back the next morning and looked at it, and the whole thing curled up like a potato chip.
I heard lacquer thinner that you can just rub lacquer thinner on printed parts to remove paint.
Yeah, you can.
It doesn't.
Do your better bet. Of course, I wouldn't soak it, or 91% IPA. I would not soak it. Just spray it on there, and that'll cut right through the take panel. But please don't use oven cleaner. You'll be sorry.
Do you use any wax and grease or prep solvent before you paint or apply any primer? Do you have to do anything to clean the resin body before you paint it?
I would strongly urge using some kind of 91% alcohol on it. Spray it, wipe it down, because you don't know the vendor where it came from. You just don't know. I mean, they may be clean, but it would not hurt to wash it down, spray it down, and let it air dry with that first. Yeah.
I wash my own stuff with Dawn before.
Yeah, Dawn, any kind of grease cutting, IPA. Just like a model kit, you want to make sure that surface is as good as it could be before you paint. But I would think, in fact, I know that the UV activated and your regular catalyst activated resin is pretty much impervious to different paints. I've not heard of it.
Right. It won't craze anything.
It won't
right.
However, and I don't want to mention the vendor, I got a cast hood from a particular vendor once that was a bit on the thin side. And when I went to go paint it, I did just one side only. And when I came back the next day after that side dried, it did curl. That tells me that it was cast maybe just a bit too thin. And the heat from the paint is what drew it up, because it was automotive paint that I used. Somebody suggested maybe paint both sides at the same time so that they kind of fight each other and don't one won't pull in the other direction. I said, that's a thought. Didn't think about that. But I do think though that if the hood was cast thicker, it would not have worked as easily because it was not paper thin, but a little thinner than I like I said, when I print, when I create files to print or make my own files to print that I create, my wall thickness in most cases is always somewhere between 1.5 to 1.8 millimeters, depending on the section to buy. Rocker panels is critical. Let me reach over here. This is my 63 Aston Martin DP 215 that I just started with.
Man, that's so nice.
I started with a single line in Blender, and I just printed the other day. The rockers, if you can see that up close, are in the 1.8 range. And like I said, this literally started as a single line in Blender to design. Why they never touched this car as far as a kit, I don't know. They just ignored it. I said, you know what? Got tired of waiting. I have a little 43rd scale in there somewhere. I said, nah, I don't feel like, well, I'm just going to make my own.
So when you do a body like that, how do you measure like a real car, or do you take photographs, or you just eyeball it? What's your process?
No, I try to find as orthographic a view of photos as possible. Side view, front view, in some cases top view if it's out there. Blueprints are okay as far as it goes, but I've run across quite a few that were not correct. Better to use the actual car with as little perspective as possible, especially a side view, and use that. What I'll then do is I'll go online and try to find the specs of the car: length, wheelbase, width, and in Blender, you can import pictures into Blender, and I scale the picture to the measurements I have. Because the 69 that I did, it's buried somewhere behind me, but that was strictly that started as a single line in Blender. 69 Mustang convertible I did. And I found the specs for the Mustang for 469, wheelbase, length, whole bit. I was able to go online and I found nearly perfect dead on shot of the convertible up top and all. And I was able to design that car from that. You know what?
Can you like import a picture into your Blender and sort of trace it?
That's basically what I do. I mean, there's a way. There's a way to do that. You are, and this is where I've told folks to learn the basics. But yeah, here's the Mustang.
Okay.
Mustang convertible.
Beautiful.
You are. We'll see. That's a twofold question. You want a good side profile, but you also want to grab as many angles of the car as possible, because there's just some things, obviously, that blueprints are not going to capture. They're not going to capture the subtle curves, creases, intersecting lines, cut lines, things like that you just can't see on a side orthographic view. So,
I think you have an eye for that too, Bill. That you probably see cars a little different than most people, as far as like lines and curves and whatnot. You know, I probably look at color more than I look at shape. You probably look at shape more than anything.
I was told as a kid once that I noticed too much. Because I can remember being 5, 6 years old. I'll give you a good example. I'm a little older now. I can remember, believe it or not, I was deaf as a kid. I had to go to speech therapy because I literally just couldn't hear. And whatever they did, they were able to bring my hearing back. And I remember having to go to speech therapy. And I can remember the speech therapist. And I can remember the lady who used to take me over. She was a principal of our school. And she had just bought a new Chevy. And she said, "Billy, you really like cars. Is this a 1967 or a 68? And I said, it's a 67, because she just bought it. I think the 68s were out. She just bought it. I said, how do you know? I said, because your taillights are different. And that to her. And sure enough, the 67 and 68s, it was a Impala she had. They have different taillights. I'm reading the message. I remember the meeting, and see, each time I purchased a model, I asked Bill if the body lines were correct. Yes. But even as a kid, I could pick out the little subtle differences. I mean, the first cars I ever saw when I first knew what a car was, so we're talking early 60s, they all had fins on them.
Right.
I didn't know what they were. I didn't know one car, but I could tell by just shapes later on, what was what. I could tell one was a little different from the other. I can still remember some of the cars our neighbors had. I just have that kind of mind or memory, I guess. And yes, it's funny you bring it up, because a designer, a good designer, would be familiar with shapes, because if you look at a car is nothing more than a combination of shapes. There's triangles, there's circles, there's squares, there's rectangles, all brought together in different, circle. We got to have rounds, got all kinds of things that put a car together, car design shape together. And some are better doing that than others,
My Jeep Grand Cherokee in some lights looks like it has a big dent in it, but then I go up to it and nope, that's the body shape.
Or the crease they decide to put in there.
Bill, what are the kind of cars that you like to do the most?
Cars that I used to see as a kid that just aren't out there anymore. I can remember distinctly, this is one of the reasons I did the Golden Hawk and the Packard Hawk. I can distinctly remember being carted around in a 57 and 58 Studebaker Golden Hawk. I had no idea what it was at the time. I can just remember the car. I can remember what the back of it looked like. I can remember sitting in the back seat and that window that had that, wraparound rear window. I can remember that as a kid, but had no idea what it was. So cars out of the 50s, of course, muscle cars, when I really started noticing them as a kid in the 60s, they were brand new. Cars like that. Exotic road racers out of the 50s and 60s, because I can remember seeing those, races on TV every now and then. And my dad was sort of a car guy too. He could get into, he was a Mopar guy. My dad could talk Mopars all day. That's all he would buy for years. Some kind of Mopar, Dodge, Plymouth, you name it. He just, that's all he wanted, until the last one did him in. He had a Dodge Dynasty was his last Mopar.
That's a horrible car.
Unfortunately.
Trouble with it. It turned him off from Chrysler forever. And his last car he owned ended up being a Honda Civic, which he loved to death. But, yeah, replica stock, basically. Stuff that I used to see as a kid that you just don't see anymore. Believe it or not, I just finished designing. You'll never see, you think the kit makers will make this? 1958 Rambler Custom 4-door hardtop. Some car, that's a car that some love to hate. I know some people just actually just hate that car because of what it is. But it's a car, that's another one I can remember being carted around in, because we had a good friend and family. It was a lady that my mom was very good friends with. That's what she had. And I can remember being taken to the store, going to outings in this car.
So we have a mutual Facebook friend of Andrei Bezrodny.
Yeah.
That he seems to put out a new resin file every week.
I don't know how he does it. I find that amazing. And he puts out, I mean, I'm talking phenomenal stuff. Interiors. I had thought that he worked as a team with some folks. And then somebody that I ran into that knows him said, no, he's doing that pretty much on his own. Like, wow, that is really good. I mean, I more power to him. I don't know how he does it. He must do, I'm sure, as a matter of fact, I can almost positive he works on several at a time. I can't see doing the type of files he does and the amount of time that he does, the small amount of time he does, and not at least have several going at the same time.
Right.
And he probably does
Right.
something like, because I sort of do that too. I have several files like right now I'm doing that are doing simultaneously. I'll get tired of one, then go work on the next, and then get tired of that and go back to it, you know, back and forth. Then I don't feel like fooling with stuff at all. Let's work on the physical stuff, you know.
Yeah, I've noticed
But
that.
I've go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I noticed, like you say, he has full kits, and then I've noticed there's quite a few people now like printing the kits and selling them on eBay. To me, that seems like that's probably the next model our business model that I would expect to see really kind of take off is, you know, just people that are printing kits for other people that don't have printers, and then, you know, you can basically grab a full kit,
Right.
everything is in. That seems like a you know, the way to do it.
And there's some really
like
good.
Go ahead.
I was going to say there's some very good vendors out there. I'm thinking of like Robert Burns of Too Many Projects. I think of Andy, I guess his last name is Lesiak.
Yes, yeah.
That does really good stuff. That he takes a lot of Andre's files and makes prints for folks. More power to these guys. And once again, I couldn't do it. I could not face that every day of cleaning out, I'm sure, multiple vats, multiple machines. No, it's enough to do what I do and keep sanity. To do that every day as a job, you have to really, really, really like doing it. I just can't do it. Every once in a while, I'll make something. I just did it not long ago. I had a print that I put on eBay. Matter of fact, it was an old file that I originally had of that Packard Hawk. And I knew that I no longer needed because I had actually revamped that file. There are some things about it I didn't like. When I created the Golden Hawk, I said, you know what? I'm going to do a new Packard Hawk because there's some things about that file that just weren't correct. I had to correct some things on the Golden Hawk that which came from a 61 and a 58, 61 Studebaker Hawk and a 58 Packard Hawk file I already had. And I made a Golden Hawk out of it and some changes I made. I said, I'm going to apply those same changes to a new Packard Hawk, and I made a new file. So I put one of my prints up on eBay, and someone got it. You know, someone that really wanted
it. But you know, just like with the resin casting stuff, there was always, you know, like Whole House, you knew that was good quality stuff. And then, you know, if you go on eBay and you see a whole kit, an Andre kit for sale for $25, you know, you just gotta wonder of, you know, is he printing at 0.05? You know, is he actually cleaning the resin? You know,
that is the fly in the ointment of buying files sight unseen without knowing either the person or the kind of quality product. Because I got to tell you, I've seen some really bad, not just prints, but files. I had someone send me a file not long ago. He was having trouble with it. He put a message on Facebook. Somebody, you know, we follow each other. He's into 3D printing. It's a set of wheels. And he put a message up to the effect that he can't produce these wheels like he intended. Somebody was trying to convert the file and they couldn't do it. So I dropped him a line that says, okay, send me the file. I'm going to take a look. I'm just curious of what this looks like. He wasn't joking. This file, it looked like it was whoever did that file, they used a scanner, but they did not take the time to straighten the mesh out to make it proper, to make it organized. You had lines and vertices going. Says, "Oh no, this is stuff that nightmares are made of. I can't do it." So I happen to have a program on my OS that's called Quad Remesher, and I ran the rear wheel through the Quad Remesher, and I got the mesh to look actually pretty darn good. I said, "Well, I tell you what, if you really, really like to have these wheels, I'll go ahead and do it, but I'm going to charge something because." The person that did the file, I can pretty much guarantee he did not have 3D printing in mind when he designed it, because the way the file was designed, it just was not. It could be made printable, but not without a lot of drama, a lot of work to go into it.
Right.
And that's, in other words, making the wheel manifold so that it can print. I can do that. But he wrote back and said, oh, it's not really worth it. I'm only going to sell. But somebody said, okay, I understand. That's okay. But not every file that's out there is made to be printable. If you're a novice at it, forget it. Do something else.
Right. A lot of people are asking about you selling your work, and you and I have talked about this before, and your time. How long does it take you to design a car? That's what I think nobody really understands.
I'll use that Aston Martin as an example. I just finished the design on that. I'm going to say maybe a week or so ago. I started, I think, I got to look, I don't have my laptop in front of me. I'm going to say I started that file probably back in May or June. Yeah. So it's very,
to put a price on that. Yeah, that's I understand.
I just don't. I'm just that's just not the reason I got into this end of the hobby. And I get a little annoyed when I do say it's not. I've gotten into arguments with people online on Facebook and elsewhere about that very thing. And I said, listen, I don't know where that came from. Just because I post something doesn't necessarily mean it's up for grabs. It's just like I'll see stuff on ArtStation or one of the other sites that show files, Sketchpad, Sketchfab, places like that. A lot of those guys don't sell their files. They're strictly hobbyists that do that as a hobby. And for someone to get an attitude as big as the room they're typing in, I find it, a bit annoying. You're going to get mad with me. Okay, I'm the one that took the time to make it. Well, now you're going to get mad with me because I don't want to up and sell it. Well, no, because next thing you know, it's sitting on eBay being printed, and not word one is mentioned is I'm the one that did it.
Right. One person gets rich off of it, right?
And
or they give it away or sell it or whatever.
Well, yeah, and I'll get some. Oh, I'll never sell. I'm sorry. Once that file is out there, God knows what can happen. What if something happens to you? Then where do your files go?
Right.
Stuff that you never intend to be out there. There it is. Somebody got it, printed it, and now they're making and not a word is mentioned. How many times you've seen scammers on? I just had one that I had to blow out, and I had his account shut down. Swiped one of my pictures, said, "I'm available for STL printing. I could." I says, "No. I spotted that immediately. I said, that is not your file. Show me the work in progress pics. I'll get crickets because you don't have them because I got them because I'm the one that made them."
That's my file.
Yeah. So show me the work in progress. Mention the program that you're using. I'll get crickets again because they couldn't design themselves out of a cornfield if their life depended. So yeah, I'm very fussy about that because there is this thing as intellectual property, and I just don't want my things out there that I don't want out there. I've had people ask me, and I've told them no problem. I did have someone not long ago, a little while ago, that I had a file on eBay, a printed file, and somebody had wrote me and asked me if they wanted, would they mind if I cast this? Oh, sure. I mean, you mentioned me, that's no problem. If someone asked, no problem. But the ones that don't ask, or ones that get an attitude because I just tell them flat no, and I don't know them, because I knew who this person was. I knew who the person was that wanted it.
Right.
They would be honest about it. But random folks out there, no, I'm sorry. I just don't do it.
Well, there's another thing is your printed bodies most likely wouldn't fit on a plastic kit anyways.
No, that is another bone of contention I've had to run into with people. Like we were talking about it before we went on air. A while back, I did a file, and this file is not out there, of a 61 Chrysler 300G. Someone saw it. I think at that point I was working on the taillight housings because the 61 has the taillights kind of the housings built into the fins. And I was trying to get that file to cooperate because there's some changes. The original 61 New Yorker file I was using wasn't quite right. There was some changes I had to make not only to the file itself, but also to make it so that it's a proper 300G. And somebody left a comment and said, would you mind if you could cast me the housing for my 61 Johan New Yorker? And I told him, I can guarantee you it's not going to fit. And then he wrote back and says, well, I don't see why would. I said, listen, I'm trying to tell you, you have two completely different origins from two completely different design houses. You have something that was tooled back in 1960, 61, as opposed to something that's coming out in 2023. Yeah, I can guarantee you I can print that. And I gotta excuse me a second, I gotta turn the do not disturb thing on here. I meant to do that and someone's trying to message me and I'm not happy. You're not going to get them to cooperate because I can guarantee you the contours will be off. The only way that works is if that file of yours was scanned. This is where scanning really comes into play. All the body kits and things you see out there, I can guarantee you the files, the parts that they were intended for, that model was scanned first. And then, then the file was adapted to the scan, and that's how they're able to, you still got to do some filing and tweaking, but just to print up parts in hopes it'll fit, that's a real big crapshoot, and I don't like playing that kind of game. hey, I should with sound. How about that? With how make them chirp.
So James, do you still want to get a printer now?
Yeah, mainly because I just want to sit there and print off Android stuff. I've been getting the emails this week as he's doing that 74 Ford pickup series, and my neighbor next door here, he had a 77, 78. It's the same basic front end, and I'm sure he'll make one. He'll get around to it eventually anyway. And it's like, is it something that would be like I'm gonna clear off my bench and build? No, but it's one of those things that's in the back of my mind that every time I live in my grandparents' house, and so every day when I came out here after school in the summers and stuff like that, that truck was parked in the driveway next door, kind of thing. But is it something that I want to go deal with that old MP or AMT Silverstone or Superstones truck? No, but to print one that probably would actually fit together, yeah, okay, sure. Do I want to spend $700 on getting a printer and a wash station and all that stuff just to build a memory? Maybe not, but
well,
there's so many things that I could. Like you pointed out, almost anything exists in 3D printing. If you can, it's either already there or somebody can design it and stuff like that. And it's really a question of, would I use it enough? Maybe, but I'm going to end up like Mr. Tester over here. I was over at his house back over the summer when I came back from NASA, Wisconsin, and it's just there's a box of this stuff, a box of this stuff, box of that stuff, and not throw shade on him, but he's got a lot of projects floating around there that have been printed, and now he's reprinting all these stuff all over again because he's got the new 12K printer to bump the resolution up from that old thing he had. And it's like I could definitely see where I have too much stuff as it is. The last thing I need to do is print out another couple hundred projects worth of 3D printed stuff.
Well, that brings up the topic of, I get questions out every now and then about building what I print. Well, just like I put this out there, and of course I got crickets again. How many kits do you guys have out there from the 80s that you've never touched? Sometimes when I design a file, it's not always with the intent to build it. It's because I like that particular car. Just like a kit will come out of a particular car. 20 years might go by, I might not ever touch it, but I just happen to like that car and something that I can hold in my hand that's in scale, albeit maybe just a body.
Yeah, I get the impression that you enjoy building the CAD model as much as you do building.
Yeah, and well, like I said, with my, I gotta go backtrack a little bit. Back in 16, I had a retinal tear in my right eye. And my vision has not really been the same since. And they did the bubble implant thing and all that. But I literally have to hold things up like this to my right eye to be able to see it. But it gets a little tedious after a while work on a model. That's one of the reasons you don't see me build as prolifically as I used to, because it's right eye. There's a cataract starting, but I was told by several doctors that they cannot do a thing with it until it fully blooms. And that could be quite some time. So it's much easier for me physically to see that big screen, big model on the laptop screen and do that than it is to fool with tiny little parts. I can do it, but not by a lot of difficulty as far as seeing it and holding things up close and make sure it's right. And, you know, that gets a little tedious. That is exactly eye straining after a while, to be honest.
Yeah. I use 2.0s for my computer work and then 3.0s for my building stuff. So yeah, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, it's just it's called getting older, and it happens to everybody.
Yeah.
I've got readers too.
I literally took the instructions out of something over the weekend and was reading them with my Optivisor because I've gotten down to that point where my distance vision and my contacts I can't read up close anymore. So it's like,
well, I've been wearing glasses since the second grade, which was in 1968, and I can remember distinctly. I can remember her name like yesterday. Her name was Nellie Lawson, and I can remember her saying to me, she was in the front of the class, and she always called me Billy. She said, "Billy, what does this say up here on the board?" And I'm sitting like in the middle of the class, and I said, "I don't know." I said, "What do you mean you don't know?" And she did the, "How many fingers am I holding?" I got it wrong. Said, okay. He didn't say anything more. She wrote out something, and she looked square at me, and she put it in an envelope, and she said, "You give this to your mother today." And the note said, "Billy's at the front of my class, not far from the front, and he cannot see the board. He needs to be taken to the doctor ASAP." Well, that started a big firestorm between her and my dad because her and my dad were divorced at that point, and that's a whole other story. But within about less than a month later, I got glasses. I've been wearing glasses ever since. I was told by my doctor once that my vision without glasses is 2600. That's legally blind. Yeah. So I have to have my glasses on, and it's gotten, I'm sure, worse than that now because of retinal tear and because my eyesight is just not like it was, you know, even 10 years ago.
Right.
It's just,
We're getting old.
that's just, you know, I have a birthday coming up in October 10th. I'll be 63. In fact, to show you how quickly the years go, I just went to a class reunion just this past Saturday night. 45 years.
Oh my gosh.
It's just amazing. Where does the time go? And it was a bittersweet reunion. I was tickled pink to see people I haven't seen in a long time, but by the same token, they had a whole table there full of pictures and candles of people that I had no idea had passed away.
Oh wow.
And they're already gone. I'm like, wow, it just shows you that, yeah, everybody's getting older, things happen, and we can't expect things to stay the same all the time. I got to say this, I won't mention names. It has to do with 3D printing. I put a file up, and somebody wrote in and says, well, that's available in resin. And I wrote back and said, yes, I know that, but only in 1/25th scale. I get DMs and messages all the time about, hey, can I print something on 1/43rd, 1/18th, 1/16th? You mentioned Andre. Andre does a whole range of scales for his files, from 1/43rd to 1/8th. That's a lot of work to scale all that. So I pick up on that people are resistant, and I notice in those social media more than anything else, to 3D printing because they feel, I don't know if they feel threatened or it's just something else they think they have to know or learn. The hobby is evolving. The hobby changes. It has to. Let's face it. 30 years from now, I'll be well into my 90s. There aren't going to be very many of us around that are going to remember a 57 Chevy, a 69 Mustang, or a 32 Ford.
Right.
It just like I can't relate to cars out of the 20s and 30s and 40s. My dad, he could pick those cars out because that's what he grew up with.
Right.
Whereas I can pick 50 stuff out all day long and tell you little subtle differences. Somebody in their 20s and 30s can't. They wouldn't. It's just
We like to ask all of our guests what your ultimate project would be. You know, if that you haven't done yet, but you've always said, I always wanted to build or make. In your case, what file would you make that you haven't made that you kind of hold sacred? What do you call that, James?
It's called
Holy
a Magnus Open Build. It's your lifetime achievement. Like people would know. I mean, people know Bill Geary for a whole variety of things from the Mr. Obsessive days and things like that. But if there was gonna be like one thing you haven't done yet that qualifies as that, like this is the car, the project, the series of cars. Like I said, it's something different to everybody, right? And so what that thing would be that you'd be like, yes, this is the culmination of my hobby is Project X.
I have a file. I've been into, if you've noticed some of the files, I've been into concept cars lately. There's one concept car I'd love to do, and I got really very good pictures of it that could pass for very good blueprints because the shots are that good. And it's the 1956 Turnpike XM show car by Mercury. Gotta look it up. This thing is
James,
wild.
can you look that up real fast?
So I actually know what this is, but yes, I can look it up.
Okay. So that's your car, huh? What makes it so special?
It has so many things going on with its body, from gull wing lift up roof panels to the creases and cut lines in the car, the color, the wheels, everything. And what's nice about it, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it uses standard Ford chassis underneath, which is probably a 57 Ford chassis would fit right underneath of it. Just a guess. I don't know. I've never seen the bottom of it, but
Right.
there's a couple others. There's another one. And I thought about doing this, but I just gotta kind of get in the right frame of mind, I guess. A 1958 Buick Skylark 3 concept car. That previewed the front end of the 59 Buicks and the 60 Buick, for that matter. Just because cars out there that we see, they're running the mill, but things that I know that for a fact that either won't be files designed for, or kit makers will never touch with a 10-foot pole in a million years.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting into now.
Very cool.
Stuff that you cannot.
Very cool.
It'd be very difficult to scratch build off of plastic. It can be done, but not without wrecking a lot of kits, wrecking a lot of just making a mess. That's something I've tried to explain to folks, that you don't have to do that when a file's out. You can file bash. I've done that many a times. I've taken files and made different things off of different, files put together, try to make it as cleanly as possible. But you don't have to wreck what's now, because kits are not cheap. They're expensive.
They are.
Costing $35-$40, and it's just, I just that car right there. I gotta do that.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
You gotta check. You gotta do a closer dig, a big dig on that. That is wild. I love it.
Wow.
That previewed the 57 Mercuries that came out not long after that was touring the circuit. And it looked, they copied a lot from it. They toned it down a bit, of course, but that is a heck of a car.
Neat.
And it runs right. It's not a trailer queen. That car, I've seen that car running. I've seen it online running down the road, someone driving
it. Wow, look at those taillights. Wow. Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy looking.
Not everybody's cup of tea, but I just something about that car is why I said you got to do that car. The interior.
What's going on with the back window?
That is a panoramic wraparound rear window that's only held up by those rear supports you see right there.
Wow.
Now I have to take print concessions into mine. I'm not sure I could do
panels.
I'd have to. Those supports can be built, but I have to put some kind of reinforcements in the body for that to print without it falling apart while it's being printed.
you'd almost have to print it separate to
You-
the glue on
probably be
later.
that on as a separate object, right?
Yeah.
How did that
Interesting.
car escape the
Wow.
factory? Didn't get crushed.
No, it was in really bad, sad shape when they came across it, and someone took it and piece by piece put it back together, and it looks better probably than it did when it was torn to show back in '56 and '57.
Wow.
I just finished another one recently that you'll never. There's diecast out there, 1956 Buick Centurion. You probably saw that Centurion.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was another one that I wanted to do for a long time. I heard rumors that a file was coming out. I never saw it. I saw one that someone did somewhere else. It left a lot to be desired. I said, you know what, I'm gonna do this car, and I just did a tiny. You know what? Oh no, it's not out here.
That's a wild car, Bill. I'd love to see you do it.
Here it is right here. Tiny little test file I did. We're gonna be funny to get in the camera here.
Oh, okay.
You see that?
Mm-hmm.
I'll do test prints every now and then for something that might be a little on the iffy side. So yeah, I'll do something in 143rd, or in that case, that's smaller than 143rd. It's probably close to 87. But I figure if it prints in that scale, no reason 125th shouldn't print.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, my thing now is I can't get enough of the concept card, because a designer told me that they don't like doing concept cars because it is hard to get good orthographic pics of those.
Mm-hmm.
That Turnpike XM is one of the exceptions. Sometimes you'll get them to take good, because I don't have to have blueprints. I can get just good side shots, good front shots, good rear shots of a particular vehicle. And I can scale it and make it look reasonable. You might have saw my Bertone Mustang that I did not long ago. That was another holy grail, by the way. That was strictly photos I found online of that car. I had no blueprints whatsoever of that.
Very cool. Very cool. Sean, do you have any questions? I've been dominating quite a bit tonight.
No, I mean, it's been, a great education in 3D printing and 60s cars and the life of Bill Geary. And yeah, you've been an awesome guest. Enjoyed talking with you.
Well, same here. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely.
No cats interrupting things. They've been good. I hear when I'm eating downstairs, I hear the bowl tinkling. So they got food. That's fine. I don't have that interruption.
Yeah. There was one question in the comments that I thought was, I think Frank was asking or mentioned something about the future of 3D printing. And what do you see for what's the next stage? Where's 3D printing going?
Yeah.
It's not unrealistic to think that some of us will live to see printers with generative AI. Print me a 125th scale model kit of a 1975 Pontiac Grand Le Mans. That file is out there, by the way.
It is, actually.
some form or fashion. That may be. Who would have thought back in if somebody back in 2015, 2016 would have jumped out in 2022 and said, do you know you're going to be printing your and designing your own file? I said, get out of here. I'm going to be doing no such thing. I wouldn't have believed him.
Right.
I'm a big believer in not just thoroughly discounting everything. Oh, I don't want to. We're on YouTube here, so I got to be careful what I say. There's just certain things that's happened in the world and the country that people would have thought impossible that have happened. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
If those things are possible, there's no such thing as impossible.
Right.
Or unrealistic. Well, try again.
No, the AI thing is interesting. I definitely think that's a potential. Like you that capability probably isn't that far off. I would say after using like image creators and stuff quite a bit, the reality is that when you ask it to do something, you'll get something else. Like, You'll get a Pontiac, but it'll look like a Ford, right?
Yeah, you got to be careful because
It
it might
won't be accurate.
be something naughty that you weren't quite expecting. Gotta, um, if someone asked about the model kit companies selling files, I can see that after a certain period of time, but that still doesn't replace the knowledge one should have of a 3D program, so that because nobody's perfect and they're going to put out files, they're going to be troublesome, just like you're going to have a part that's going to have trouble replacing, or you might have trouble getting a file fixed from said vendor or from said company. If you have that ability to learn the tech, at least be able to troubleshoot, I just think your life will be that much easier if we ever get to the point where that's all they're doing. They're no longer producing kits; they're just selling strictly files.
James, wasn't there one of the manufacturers is now offering like a detail upset in files?
Yeah, it's oh poop. It's one of the aircraft guys. I think it's Dora Wings. They're if you buy the kit, you'll get a code to download like a new seat, new wheels, new landing gear, barrels for your guns and stuff like that. Because what I was going to say to Bill is, like, I think being a designer and a printer and a modeler, that there are still things, at least within the current realm, that injection molding can do that 3D printing simply can't.
Right.
And there are things, of course, 3D printing can do that you can't do in injection molding because of draft angles and all that stuff. I think the two things will complement each other quite a bit. You can print a barrel that's hollow with the cooling jacket on it that you can't really inject in a very detailed way, but it's not going to be. And you guys discussed it earlier with the differences in resins and printing and altitude and humidity and all that stuff. It's going to be very hard for them without a huge industry standard being developed for them to be able to give you a file that's going to print the same way for everybody all the time.
Right.
Perfectly.
And that's the point I was making about if it gets to that point, it still helps to have some kind of background or knowledge of a program. So if you can't fix it, you can at least zero in and say, okay, is the problem is such and such and such and such. I'm not a mechanic, but I can pretty much tell if the car is not running properly and what it needs to fix it.
Right.
You may not be able to fix it myself because I can't get in the crawl on the ground like I used to. Those days are over. That's a big no.
For me, I think we're getting pretty close to a point where you're going to see a manufacturer just offer a 3D printed kit, and it'll just instead of injection molding it, they're going to 3D print it. I think as the quality of the prints go up and the cycle time, it can print much faster. The cost will come down, and they'll just print on demand. You'll order it, they'll print it, they'll ship it to you. And
yeah, I can see it heading that direction. Oh yeah,
and it may not be a major manufacturer. I mean, the entry cost to that would be much lower than, so it wouldn't take much for a small operation to be able to run a fairly decent volume of work that way. And especially if the kit,
Shapeways just closed down. That was probably the closest thing of what you're talking to.
The Shapeways situation is interesting because I think had they changed their business model a bit differently, they might have fared better than they did. I say that in as much as you could not, perfect example, you could not buy files from them.
Right.
You can only get the printed product, and I have to say, and some might take exception to this, some of the things I've gotten from Shapeways were what I consider to be substandard, looking back.
I think that was a lot of people's experience with Shapeways.
Yeah. It was not as good as it could be or should be, yet the price was constantly going up. I mean, come on.
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
boys
Tim-
and girls, I
Tim
believe
brought up
we
a-
are. Oh, wait,
Go
hang
ahead.
on.
No. Go ahead.
Oh, you're talking about the piracy issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
That goes to
With,
what
with,
I
the, with the fact that the music industry has never managed to figure out how to keep people from pirating stuff. So
and we were just talking about files that folks expect you just to hand over even after you made it. And I'm sorry, that's just ain't, you got the wrong guy. I just no, I'm real. I know others that are in that business that will not let files go. They'll print, but they absolutely will not let files go because you just don't know where it's going to end up. Someone could promise you moon. Oh, I'll never let it go. Well, okay.
say there's a thread on MCM right now of somebody who designed set of, I think it was wire wheels for the Revell Jaguar, and he found that somebody had taken the file and was reselling it on Cults, which is where he sells the file at, without changing the file name or anything. Stole it from him and then was selling it on the same platform that he stole it from. And the Cults is real good about that. They immediately shut the guy down, but that's like the lowest form of lazy stealing. I'm going to take this thing and then I'm going to steal your car and then I'm going to sell it in your driveway.
Before we go, I got a hot story for you. I got into it with a fellow who was upset because you've seen me mention EDM 3D model out of France, the files that I get from him. He's very, very, very real nice guy. I've talked with Eric quite a bit. I put up one, I don't remember what file it was anymore. It was one of the old bills he does. And I put a file up that it was out there, was available for download. Anybody can go ahead and print it or convert it to print. So somebody had asked me about converting it. And I think I told him, no, I'm going to convert it for me. And this guy comes on and says, oh, he does it for only select people. He has his favorites. I'm like, oh, no. I gotta jump on this guy with both feet, both size 15s on this guy. So I said, okay, listen, yeah, I may for a friend of mine or someone that I know real well. I'm just not going to just make stuff for any. Well, I don't see why he even bothered to put. He just got real nasty. I said, dude, you got to get out of here. I ain't blocking the guy. I said, well, it got better. I don't want to mention names, but apparently someone wrote in and said that he has a major lawsuit against this person because he has a no-sell policy with his files that he lets out. You might know who I'm talking about now. This character decided to take his files, not only print them, but was putting them on eBay. And once he got a cease and desist order, he doubled down and kept on printing. And he was found in judgment of like $7,500 because he said, well, Bill, instead of him arguing with you, he ought to be busy at work to pay me the $7,500. He was found. I said, what?
Yeah, I know this story. Yeah.
So I said, so that's what that was all about. So he wanted the files for me, already done, ready to roll after I do all the work, turn around and sell on eBay. Not word one is mentioned that I'm the one that created the file. No, this is one of the reasons why I keep everything to myself. That's not the sole reason, but that's part of it right there. You have folks out there that are beating their knuckles against the headboard, staring at the ceiling at midnight, wondering how they can beat you out of your money. And I'm not having it. I just don't suffer fools gladly when it comes to things like that. Because it's a lot of work. It's not rocket science, but it is a lot of work. It's equivalent to model building, except it's digital.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're the perfect example. Just tell people, like, I taught myself how to do this. Teach yourself how to do it then if you want to do it so bad.
I told the guy, learn the tech. The program Blender is free. Doesn't cost me. You might have some add-ons or something, but the program itself to download is free. Then you have to take the time. This is where some folks fall flat. Take the time and patience to learn the tech. That the patience is your number one tool, your greatest tool in your tool arsenal. your weapon is patience. And some just just lack that. What am I supposed? I can't do anything with that. You have the patience or you don't.
How am I going to turn this into a quick money making operation if I have to learn something?
Don't
I
you?
got time for that.
They're beating their knuckles against that headboard, staring at the ceiling. What can I do? What can I do? Get out there and get a job. Yeah, you can do that.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, there's episode 12 of the Automotive Podcast. Thanks, everybody, in the comments for joining in. This is probably one of the most viewed episodes we've done so far, according to the live counter on the top of the screen. So, Bill, you're famous.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
You're famous, Bill.
Not more so than ever. So, Bill, we really want to appreciate you coming on tonight.
I really enjoyed it.
And Mr. Chester, since you're our head guest booker at this point, who's up next?
Oh, my good friend Spencer Wilson is next week, or next episode. He has a YouTube channel of the Scale Auto Garage. So check out some of his videos. He's a good builder, and he puts out amazing work like every week. So just check it out.
So that'll
I
be.
think you guys will like him.
Yeah, that'll be 2 weeks from now on the beginning of October. A heads up to everybody, we're going to be we have 2 more episodes this season because in November I start working 6 days a week and the holidays will come crashing in and everything else. So we will, of course, be back after the new year. We're not kiboshing this after what will be 14 episodes. I always say if you can make it past a 7th episode, the concept will run. So we're almost double that now. But so a couple more episodes of this, and we'll take a break for the Christmas holidays and all that stuff, just so you guys know in advance that that you're hanging out in the comments. We're not evaporating, but we're gonna take some time off for all the Thanksgivings and Christmas and stuff like that. But again, everybody, appreciate you guys tuning in tonight, and we'll see you guys on the other side.
Thanks. Take
Thanks,
care,
everyone.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.